Alright, listen up, wartards. Welcome to the Why You Suck series. Public service where I tell you the hard truth. Hosted by yours truly. Because the vehicles are probably great. You're just shit. That's right. It's not Gaijin's fault. It's not the BR. And no, Chad McAmerica's F-16 didn't magically phase through your missiles. It's you. But don't cry just yet. The point of this series is to actually help you suck less. I'm here to give you an entertaining, brutally honest, and brain cell-friendly tutorial on how to play different vehicles in War Thunder without being a free kill. And the first poor bastard under the microscope is the Russian Pantsir S1.
Привет, старик, я слышал, ты спалился, твой кабинет сгорел, и говорят, что за столом.
Before we get into it, however, let's talk about the Pantsir Paradox. See, the Pantsir is like Schrodinger's SBAA. Online, everyone acts like it's the final boss of anti-air, this impenetrable god-tier no-fly zone that vaporizes anything with wings. But in-game, I keep seeing swarms of Eurotard Doritos and tacky American Eagles carpet-bombing every Pantsir like it's a piñata full of RP. So, logically, by process of elimination, either the Pantsir sucks, or the brain in the battle van itself sucks. And since it's you behind the wheel, well, you do the math, genius. First of all, you're going to want to understand these babies right here. These radars are either going to make your day, or send you into a mental institution. The Pantsir's radars are absolutely overkill compared to the TWS and they bring a few new party tricks. The first of which is the TWS mode. That's track while scan for anyone who skipped radar class. Basically, when you lock onto literally anything, everything else your radar sees gets highlighted with a slightly more anorexic box than your target. This lets you use your switch target key to, shockingly, switch targets. However, the brain-melting reality is when you're on the battlefield of War Thunder facing off against every single RAF Typhoon in existence at once, TWS switching is basically Russian roulette. There's no consistent way to actually switch to what you want, so you're left making do with whatever the radar picks, which tend to be random hydrogen atoms in outer space for some godforsaken reason. Another delightful issue: once you've locked an enemy aircraft and they decide to fire a missile, which, spoiler alert, they always do, your radar in all of its wisdom just sometimes stops tracking the jet and starts tracking the missile instead. And if you try to use your TWS mode to switch back to the jet, your own missile will have a seizure and fling itself off to Azerbaijan. But don't despair this time, there's actually a fix. Enter the humble IRST. Basically, hot equals food. So those fast jets will be easy to see, probably. Because of how IRST works, it usually doesn't see the missiles at all, and even if it did, it wouldn't switch to track them. So once you've locked an enemy plane, try to lock them with the IRST as soon as possible. You might be asking, what if they flare? Well, here's the funny thing: as a sentient and hopefully intelligent organism, you can just switch back to the radar, because trust me, they're not going to be firing any missiles or hurtling towards the ground at Mach Jesus trying to dodge yours. Your radar track stays unaffected by the swap, so job done. Oh, and before I forget, make sure these settings are what you use on your radar. And for the love of Stalin, bind those keys, because you'll never know when you're spawned underneath Apollo 11 sitting a cajillion kilometers directly above you requiring a change to your radar search zone. Another shiny new toy this overpriced battle bus drags onto the battlefield is the ability to choose between direct or line of sight guidance, which is the normal mode you'll know from the Ursa and 2S6, and this new magical thing called auto lead mode. Basically, in auto lead mode, you pray to the computer gods of glorious Russian microchips that they'll figure out where to actually fire the missile so it's more likely to hit the target. And look, sometimes it works, but to me, it honestly feels like a personal preference thing. I'd argue direct guidance is superior once you get used to it, because if you try auto lead on something diving towards the ground, well, the missile's just gonna yeet itself into the floor. Plus, auto lead sometimes just misses. Like, for no reason. 1 minute your missile's on track, And next it's off chasing migrating birds over fucking Belarus. So here's my advice. It's better to trust your own chubby hands than leave every missile shot to the whims of some vodka-soaked circuit board. Because at the end of the day, the Pantsir might be a technological marvel, but if you're letting Autolead do all the thinking, you're basically a passenger on your own battle bus, hurtling straight into disappointment. Alright, another thing that technically isn't unique to the Pantsir, but got dropped on us in the recent Leviathans update, is this new goofy as fuck radar screen. Supposedly, it's meant to give you a more realistic POV of the battle inside a SAM system. Like you're one of the two underpaid conscripts in the battle van, furiously mashing buttons while chain-smoking cheap Russian cigs. And listen, it's very obviously designed for the new multi-vehicle SAMs, because when I tried this hot garbage on the Pantsir, it genuinely made me want to die. It's seriously unusable. It murders your situational awareness, it buries you under a neon spaghetti mess of targets, and leaves you sitting there clicking around like a boomer trying to close pop-up ads on a porn site. You'll be staring at that radar screen thinking, am I tracking a typhoon, my pigeon, or the ghost of Kiev? So do not use this if you value your sanity, because for this thing to actually work on the Pantsir, the stars would have to align, Mercury would need to be in Gopnik, and you'd have to sacrifice at least 3 goats to the radar gods. Save yourself the suffering, stick with the classic view, or your Pantsir will be more lost than Russia's second Guards tank army in a Ukraine forest. And lastly, I'm going to touch on some modifications and positionings you should try to aim for in battle. For modifications, honestly, there's not much to say. The Pantsir is basically the same beast fully spaded as it is stock. All you really need are thermals. Because if you're going to get face-hugged by a Eurofighter, you might as well see it happening in crisp HD. As for positioning, you're going to need to get a good map, and preferably a spot where the local spawn campers aren't sniffing around. You'll want a place with decent radar sight lines to the sky, but unfortunately most maps in Warthunder are smaller than the L3, so getting this giant Soviet battle van anywhere without dying is borderline impossible. And if you spawn this thing in first, congrats, you're probably going to get spawn camped before a single aircraft even tickles your radar scope. And even if some poor jet pilot spawns early, the enemy tankers will spot this glimmer of hope in your eyes and shut that shit down faster than the dissolution of the USSR. Bottom line, Pantsir's success is only partly up to you, because it's also down to the gaggle of morons you call a team, and you'd better pray that they don't collectively fuck up. Because if, well, when they do, your ass is going to be nothing but free food for the 60 Leopard 2s charging at Mach Jesus. So the last thing I'll briefly talk about is the best way to aim your missiles when you're using line of sight guidance. Basically, you need to imagine a lead indicator hanging out in front of the jet. Aim there, aim as far ahead as you need until the missile's flying steady and not shaking like a crack at it in withdrawal. Try to keep the missile's little digital nose sitting right on top of the target. Give it a moment, and if the warthunder gods are merciful, you'll get yourself a juicy explosion paired with some absolute ear candy. So, in conclusion, this giant battle van can live up to the hype, if the game lets it. The top tier meta has changed a ton since the Pantsir arrived, and it's honestly harder to use than ever. You've got Eurofighters showing up at point blank range, pulling 20 Gs defying physics, while Rafales sit 20 kilometers away eating their goofy ass missiles at you, trying to get somewhere hidden. Keep an eye out for missiles screaming your way, and remember to switch over to IRST when you're guiding one of your own missiles. Because hot equals food, remember? And listen, I'd recommend not first spawning this thing, because your average game doing that would be about as underwhelming as a Soviet 5-year economic plan. Save it for later in the match and enjoy it as part of a well-balanced lineup. And so, hopefully now you'll suck a little less, and you'll be able to clear the skies as best as possible in your glorious banana bus of death. Good luck, and for the love of Mother Russia, try to have fun.